Welcome to the channel Trim It Color. We are on process of making this vintage pocket watch. In our previous video, we have done the modeling of this watch, and in this particular video, we are going to do the unwrapping of the models. In the next video, I am going to texture it in Substance Painter, and later on, I am going to render it by using Arnold. So let's get started. As you have seen in the last session, we have done the modeling of this object. And I have kept all these objects inside these three layers. For now, let's concentrate on the top cover. Select the object and isolate it, and let's change the workspace from Maya Classic to UV editing. So right hand side windows, you can see UV editor and UV toolkit. So at the very beginning, the object is selected. I'm going to create, clicking on planner. Going to the option box, make sure the camera is selected and project. You can see we are getting already a decent UV, but the front and back are overlapped. So going to UV and taking 3D cut tool, you can see I have kept this tool in my shelf itself because I am going to use it again and again to create a seam, and will detach the front part and the back part. So right click, taking the edge component, so just double click on the loop. And you can see I already have created a seam. Right click, click on UV shell, keep it aside, and you can see the front and back are different now. Now the UV shell is selected, going to unfold and clicking on unfold. If any overlapping is there, it will be unfolded. Similarly, selecting the second UV shell, clicking on unfold. Selecting both the UV shells, going to layout and clicking on layout, so that both the UV shells will be inside the positive area. This object is done. Now let's go back and isolating the second object. I'm going to follow the same steps I have taken, so let's speed up the process a little bit. You can ask why UV unwrapping is necessary, because if UVs are stretched or overlapped, our textures also will be stretched or overlapped, and we don't want that. Alright, now let's select all the UV shells and clicking on layout. So you can see all the UV shells are inside the positive area. Alright, this object is done. Now Ctrl A and open the channel box, and let's click on the machine. Selecting the cover and isolate select. The object is selected, going to create and planner. Taking the 3D cut tool, selecting the edge, and let's select this edge loop. Also selecting this internal edge loop. Now you can see I have converted the entire model into 3 UV shells. Let's keep it aside. So selecting the first UV shell and clicking on unfold. Select the second, clicking on unfold. And same thing for the third UV shell. Select all the UV shells and clicking on layout. This object is also done. Let's go back. In the last video we did the modeling, and in between I have done something. Let's select this object and isolate select, and you can see the bottom face I have deleted. For each and every object I have done that. Okay, let's come back and select all the 3 objects and go to create and planner. Now let's keep this aside. Let's select this UV shell and unfold. Selecting the second, unfold, but in this case it is not looking fine, so just undo it. Let's select the UVs of the individual areas and unfold it. I'm selecting small areas and unfolding it. So this is much better what we are getting. Now let's select the third UV shell and unfold. So select all the UV shells and layout, and this is done. Let's go back. Now let's unwrap this object. The object is selected, going to create and planner. Selecting all the UVs and unfold. Now let's transfer the UV shell. So let's go back. Object is selected, shift select this object going to Mesh and Transfer Attributes, going to the option box, going to Edit and Reset. Only UV sets will be on and rest will be off. And let's select component over here and apply. Selecting both the UV shells and clicking on Layout. Alright, now let's concentrate on this object. So isolate select and I'm doing the same planar mapping. Now let's cut the seams for the teeth of the gear. So I'm taking 3D cut tool and let's select the seams I want. Alright, now let's select all the UVs and clicking on Unfold, and you can see there is no overlapping around the edges. So this object is done. I'm going to unwrap the other gears in a very similar way. So let's speed up the process a little bit. Alright, now let's concentrate on the screw. Let's isolate it. Going to Create and Planar Mapping. And you can see the sides are not perfect. So at the very beginning, through 3D cut tool, I am selecting the seams. I have converted the entire object into two UV shells. Now let's create a seam over here and also cutting these two edges. And I have converted the entire UV shell into 4 small UV shells. So selecting each of these and clicking on Unfold. But here you can see the middle one is not perfect, so I need to adjust it manually. So the goal is to get the same scaling checker boxes. Now let's select the UVs of the side faces and clicking on Unfold. We are getting the UV shell like this. And here also I need to manually scale it. We also can do cylindrical mapping for these particular faces because this is a cylindrical object. Now let's select the middle one and scale it up a little bit. Selecting the side edges and click on Stitch Together. And doing the same thing for this side also. And you can see it has been converted into one UV shell. Now select both the UV shells and clicking on Layout. Alright, now let's go back and this object is selected, shift selecting the other screw, going to Mesh and Transfer Attributes. And like the previous one, this object unwrapping is also done. Now let's select this object and I am unwrapping it in the same manner. So let's speed up the process a little bit. Alright, now let's unwrap this screen. So selecting the object and going to create and plan mapping. So for this object also I don't want the bottom faces. So let's select the edge at the bottom, double click on it, right click, two faces and two faces. Hit delete. And this object is also done. Now let's select this hinge, isolate select, going to create and planar mapping. Let's create a seam by 3D cut tool. Because the shape is cylindrical, inside also I need to create a seam. Select the UV shells and unfold. Select all the UV shells and clicking on layout. And this object is also done. And I am transferring the UVs from this hinge to the second one. Alright, this part is done. Now let's go to the chain layer. So I am clicking on the chain layer. So select this object and let's isolate it. The object is selected, going to create and planar mapping. And like the previous objects, I am taking the 3D cut tool and let's create a few seams. Now let's separate each UV shells. Now selecting one by one and let's unfold it. But you can see this UV shell is not perfect. So selecting all the faces of this UV shell, let's go to create and apply cylindrical mapping. Now I need to rotate this cylindrical mapping along with the selected cylinder. Also scaling it correctly to get even checker boxes, and now it's looking fine. This object also you can see through unfolding it's not correct, so once again I am going to do the cylindrical mapping only. So first of all, the sweep has to be 360 degree and I am giving a rotation of 90 degree. And now I am adjusting the seam of it. And you can see this portion is incorrect, so cutting from one side and stitching it to the other side, and now it is looking perfect. So selecting all the UV shells and clicking on layout, going back and let's select this ring, isolate select. The object is selected, go to modify and unitize. Now all the faces are separate. So selecting one loop and shift select the entire object, and I am also deselecting this circle. Now let's click on stitch together, and you can see it has been converted into a rectangular UV shell. I'll just scale it to get the even checker boxes. This is done, and now click on layout. And this object is also done. Let's go back, and similarly I will transfer the UV from this ring to the second one. Now we have to unwrap the chain. So selecting the object, going to mesh and separate, so that each and every loop is separate. By default the UV shell is looking fine to me, so I'll just scale it to get even checker boxes and we'll click on layout. Let's go back and let's transfer the UVs through transfer attributes option For each and every loop, I am going to do the same, so I'll just speed up the process a little bit. Alright, this is done. Now selecting all the UV shells together and clicking on layout to get all the UV shells inside the positive area. Let's scale it down a little bit, and this object is also done. Now I think all the unwrapping is done for this particular scene. Let's click on all the objects. Alright, now it's time to replicate some of the screws. So I'm just duplicating and placing the screws in different places. Alright, this is done. Now let's prepare the scene for Substance Painter texturing. So let's go to Hypershade. We need to decide how many UV sets we are going to create for this particular scene. So I'm creating a Lambert, and let's select the chain and assigning the material. And let's give it a green color and renaming it as chain. Similarly, creating a second Lambert and renaming it as cover, and selecting the cover, let's assign it and giving it a red color. Once again creating another Lambert, let's rename it as inside parts and selecting the inside parts, I'm assigning the material and let's give it a blue color. Similarly, let's create another Lambert and give it a name as gear and selecting all the gears and assigning the material. Alright, now let's go to UV editing layout. Opening the Hypershade once again, right click and select objects with material. Doing the same for the red one and selecting all the UV shells and clicking on layout. Now I can see some space I'm wasting, so manually I'm going to place the UV shells. Alright, and doing the same thing for the other materials. My plan is to create 4 UV sets and accordingly I am arranging the UV shells. While doing it, we need to remember one thing, that all the checker boxes of all the objects are looking similar, and that is our goal. If we can do that, then the texture also will be evenly distributed. Alright, this is done. Now select everything, going to File and Export Selection. Let's name it as watch_low and export. Make sure the file format is FBX. When we'll open this file in Substance Painter, all the materials will appear as different texture sets inside Substance Painter. So this is it for today. In the next video, we are going to texture this in Substance Painter, and in the later videos, we are going to render all the maps extracted from Substance Painter inside Maya by using Unwrap. In case you have missed the modeling of this watch, the link is given in the description. You can check it out. Hope you enjoyed today's session, and don't forget to subscribe the channel for the future videos, and thank you very much for watching.